Hello all and a warm welcome to the Grand National 2022 preview podcast with the Liverpool Echo. I'm your host Tony Scott and I've got two special guests to hopefully put you in the right direction for all your Grand National needs on Saturday. Maybe they can pick a couple of winners out for us too. Our first guest is no other than ITV Racing's main frontman, broadcaster and all-round good egg, Mr. Ed Chamberlin. Ed, welcome back to Merseyside.
Oh, it's great to be back. Just arrived on Southport, or in Southport rather, and honestly, it's so exciting. I just love this week more than any other, I think.
Fantastic stuff indeed. My other guest is our very own, big pressure on him to get the Grand National winner this year. Our horse racing correspondent of the Liverpool Echo, Mr. Chris Wright. How's things, Chris?
Yeah, it's all good. Busy as always when it's this time of year.
Indeed, lots of memories to look back on and hopefully a few in the pipeline for Saturday. But before we do, how would you like to go to the Randox Grand National on Saturday? If you're interested, please comment in the link below your name and who you'd like to attend, and you could be in with a shout of winning a pair of tickets for Grand National events on Saturday. Good luck with that. Well, gentlemen, would you believe it? It's April 2019 since spectators were inside Aintree Racecourse for the great event itself. For the likes of yourself, Ed, you must be absolutely so excited to get back inside Aintree Racecourse with spectators for once.
Yes, Tony, and listen, I think this event needs spectators more than any other. This is the people's race for a reason, really. This is Liverpool's week, the people of Merseyside's week. And last year we saw one of the great sporting events, not just one of the great racing events that took place in a ghost town. And Rachel Blackmore, Henry de Bromhead and Manila Times came back to virtual silence. There was a few owners there, not much more than that. And, I was clapping and my claps reverberated around Aintree. So this week is going to be a brilliant contrast. I can't wait for Thursday when they've got 10,000 NHS staff there and the people of Merseyside are back out to play again. And then we all know what Friday's about. And then Saturday is just going to be absolutely spectacular. And our theme on ITV this week is the people, because that's the reason we love coming here. I can't go anywhere this week, be it for a coffee or getting breakfast, whatever, without someone wanting to know who the national winner is going to be and welcoming me back to Liverpool. It's just wonderful.
Great stuff indeed. Chris, from a local perspective, the energy and the buzz around the city now is just on another scale, isn't it? To see restaurants, hotels, bistros, hair salons, the whole city is now buzzing for these 3 days.
Yeah, I mean, I was lucky enough to be at Aintree as well last year working the course, and it was a very surreal experience. But as you say, the build up to this week is just phenomenal in the area, and to have people back, crowds back at the course, and all getting ready, all the ladies getting ready for Friday, and all the fellas getting ready to have a few bets and maybe a few pints and what have you. Over the 3 days, it's just such an exciting time of the year.
Fantastic stuff indeed. But before we look back and also look ahead to Saturday's great race, I've got to ask Ed a bit of an insight. Ed, you're addressing the nation, so to speak, on Saturday. Millions and millions of people are going to be tuning into you on Saturday for ITV Racing. You must get nervous, surely.
Yeah, of course I do. And I hope, when you're hosting and presenting, you have a few nerves too. And anyone at home doing anything, whether you're making a presentation at work, you're doing a little family speech at a gathering, whether you're hosting an event, you should have nerves. It's all about embracing those nerves. And you say I'm addressing the nation. You like to think we might get 10 million people watching in the UK on Saturday. And to put that in perspective, the biggest football game I ever did was always Man United, Liverpool, Liverpool, Man United. And that would get around 3 million. And this is a Grand National getting 10. The Gold Cup the other day got 1.7 million. This is huge. And it's not just this country. This is watched worldwide. This year, more than any other year, with what Rachel Blackmore has done. And I'm sure we'll talk about that. This is a global event. Hundreds of millions of people watching around the world. And when the director's assistant, I have 3 voices in my earpiece. And when the director's assistant, who's in charge of timings, comes in my ear and says, Ed, 30 seconds till we're on air on Grand National Day, honestly, my heart is beating out of my chest. But I have a little note on the top of my pad of paper. I've got all my runners and riders and ITV rundown that just says, remember to smile and slow down. The more nervous I am, or the more nervous you are at home when you're hosting or doing anything like that, speak a little bit slower. Because I'll be very nervous. I'll be full of adrenaline and excitement, and that's why I do the job for days like this. And honestly, this is the reason the Grand National, I've said it everywhere, is the reason I left football to go into racing. This is the job and the event I wanted to present more than any other. This is a dream come true for me. And yeah, every year, it gets the old ticker going big time.
Great stuff indeed. I'm sure you'll smash it as ever.
I hope so. I'll try.
You will, I'm sure. Before we look ahead to Saturday's great race, I'm going to push the gents for one or two memories gone by. What is your favourite Grand National memory of all time? I'm going to be selfish here, gents. I'll go first. A bit of a personal one for me. I remember growing up, getting around my nan and granddad's flat, watching the Grand National, and I was in amazement of why all the family would just come together to watch the Grand National on a small TV set in my nan and granddad's flat off Scotland Road there. My aunties, my uncles, cousins, and there'd be a family sweepstake on the go. I remember watching that 89 Grand National. I think Little Polvia won. In fact, I do know that because I actually won it in the sweepstake. So it's just some brilliant personal memories. My nan and granddad sadly no longer with us. It's just special moments that I'll never ever forget. And that's why the Grand National stood out for me. It just captured my attention straight away. So a bit of a personal one for me, that 89 Grand National there, Little Polvia for me. Great Grand National memory indeed. Chris, what about you? What's your favourite Grand National memory of all time?
Yeah, I'm a bit like you. When I first, I was 6 or 7 when Red Rum first won the race, and that was what captured my imagination. And I imagine anyone around my age, that Red Rum's, the first one when he caught Crisp, it was just a special thing. And as a youngster, I couldn't believe what I was watching. They were jumping those massive fences, and and realising that it was only just down the road. I'm only 2 or 3 miles down the road from where it was going on. Somebody had the bets and with my nan and my mum and what have you, 2.5 pence each way. I won on Red Run. I don't know how much I won, but it seemed like a lot back then. And then 77 was just unbelievable. I mean, we were lucky enough to see Tiger Roll, win a second Grand National, but it would have been special to be in that, to see Red Run win 3, because it's almost impossible for a horse to win 2, never mind 3. So it must have been a great day. But I was watching on the telly with that, and that was just something special. And being there, one of my favourite ones was a bittersweet thing. Was Monmouth in 2009, I think it was. I'd tipped Monmouth anti-post.
No way.
Whoa.
Yes, at 40 to 1. I'm back at 40 to 1.
He went off at 100.
And then it went off at 100 to 1, so I actually lost. I won. I had a 40 to 1 winner, and I lost the national.
Nice.
In a way, because I'd gone off it by the time of the race. I didn't tip it on. I tipped it as a very good outsider, but I'd gone off because the form. I think it ran in the Midlands Grand National and was down the field a bit, and I thought it maybe had a harder race. But yeah, that was a strange moment, because I was standing up where we watched the race from the press area. There's also the owners and trainers, and Venetia Williams, who trained Monmouth, and she was standing a couple of feet away from me, and the joy on her face, and the joy on my face was great because I got the winner, and then I heard it, and it's 100 to 1. Suddenly, I wasn't that happy, but I was still. But that was a great day as well, and I've had so many great afternoons at Aintree on Grand National Day.
And fingers crossed you can pick the winner this year, Chris. Ed, What about you? You must have some fantastic memories of the National.
Oh, Tony, we need an hour and a half podcast. I try not to bore people here. I can bore for Britain on this. I've got a sort of short list, if you don't mind. I mean, 1981 would be one of the greatest ever, and the race that got me into horse racing with my granddad, Old Aniti, obviously, in a story that totally passed me by, because I'd had probably similar bet to you, Chris. I'd had my money on Spartan Missile and was furious and screaming at the TV. I would have been 7 years old then. But I was bitten by the bug then, and every year I do the family sweepstake and dream of going to Aintree. And my first trip to Aintree, when I finally started earning a decent living, and I remember it so well, it was 1990, it must have been Mr. Frisk, and about 6 of us crammed into a tiny room in the Knutsford Little Chef Travel Lodge. And then we piled to, in those days, you'd have a party at Canal Turn. And you'd try and get a position to watch the race. But by the time they came past, it was absolutely mobbed. But it was a great party, and I always vowed then that when I started earning a better salary, I'd go, treat myself to one of the enclosures. And the first one was 1992. And the challenge from all my mates was to get on TV behind Des Lynam. And you record it on the VHS at home and then spend all Sundays fast forwarding through to see if you'd got on the telly. Can you believe that? Now, 30 years later, that's my job. It's mad. But then I came most years after that. And then I became an odds compiler and that type of thing. And there were some great nationals. And obviously, most recent for me now was 2017 and making my debut on ITV, presenting the national Dream Story. And I tipped one for Arthur as well for my sins. And we won a BAFTA for that first Grand National, which is the most amazing experience I've had in television. And then along came a little horse called Tiger Roll, who didn't do me any harm whatsoever. But if you nailed me down to one, Tony, and I know you're going to do that, it would have to be Sir Anthony McCoy winning on Don't Push It, because we're obviously great mates, and I knew what a burden it had become for him. It was almost torture every year in the National, the year when he got carried out on Clan Royal and all these kind of things. And you just thought, this is never going to happen. And I knew what it meant to him. And that's, I think, the one race where I properly shed tears on the run-in, I think, when he won the National. And that celebration afterwards. And it's still, and my family, I hope don't mind me saying this, the best party I've ever been to. Sir Anthony's Grand National party at his house. They had golf buggies to get you from your car to the venue. It was the night of the Champions League final, and there was a gambling area, and it's great. Great.
Sounds like heaven.
It was amazing. It was amazing. Good music as well. It was just because one thing he might be a miserable so-and-so, but my goodness, he's generous. And I just knew what that meant to him. Finally getting the monkey off his back and winning the Grand National, because his career wouldn't have been complete without it. So I think that would be my favourite of all the great memories, and I've got so many. I think that would be the number one.
Some fantastic memories there indeed. Chris, just before we look at our fairy tale story that we want to see this year, it's worth remembering 25 years ago this week, in fact to the present day as we are recording, at the bomb scare when Liverpool literally just looked after the Grand National forevermore. But we've seen everyone open the doors to all and sundry when there was obviously people just derelict and didn't know where to turn due to the bomb scare. And that's when Liverpool just, in terms of adversity, stood out and be counted. Yeah,
I mean, it was a strange and surreal place around Aintree on that day. Nobody knew. I've spoke to various jockeys. I recently spoke to Tony Jobber, who obviously won the race on Lord Galleen, and he was saying, in the weighing room, they thought someone had set off a fire alarm, and they didn't know what was going on, and he was one of the jockeys who managed to get home. Someone picked him up at the M58 and took him home. And he said he was a little bit unhappy about that, because I know a lot of them enjoyed the hospitality of Liverpool over Saturday night, Sunday. And again, I've spoke with Ed's colleague, Mick.
Yeah, I was going to say, if you speak to Mick, Chris, you could only print probably half of it.
Yeah, well, I spoke to him a few years back as well, and he told me some of the stories, not all of them, I don't think. But they were welcomed in, and they went to the Adelphi Hotel and stayed there, and it was a case of everyone rallying around, and I think that's what Merseyside does, maybe more than many other cities. In terms of adversity, everyone gets together, and it was great to see that race put back on, and it was great. Another one in that I backed Lord Galleen, so it was great that it was back on, because I had a nice little win on it. But yeah, again, a strange moment, and especially after 4 years earlier with the race that never happened. When it was partially run, it looked like it was going to be another bad day. The race wasn't going to take place, but thankfully it went ahead, and it was a great day, and I think there was 25,000 people on the Monday. So it was still, a major event for 5 o'clock on a Monday when people are in work and stuff like that. And, it was an interesting time.
Interesting time indeed. Well, we're lucky to have the Grand National on our doorstep, aren't we, Chris? But as history tells us, 25 years ago, the Grand National is lucky to have Liverpool. Now, we're going to push the lads in a minute for their selections, but that's what the But let's get to find out what they want to happen. What is their fairy tale story? Well, there's a lot of stories, isn't there? That you've obviously got the Snow Leopardess story, which I'm sure a lot of people up and down the country will want to happen. The Rachel Blackmore factor once more. Can she become the next jockey to win back-to-back Grand Nationals? You've got the Fiddler on the Roof scenario with the Tizard team. Ed, we'll go to you first for this one. I've got a feeling which fairy tale story you're looking for on Saturday.
Well, it depends if you're talking my pocket or my heart, because I'm going to tip one of the potential fairy tale stories a little bit later on. But Snow Leopardess is the best story by a mile, Tony, really, for so many different reasons. It would be a great story in her own right, because one, she's a mare, which is great. Could she become the first mare for 71 years? You know, the fourth mare in history to win it, which is great. Then she's grey. My grandfather, all he did every year was back Scottish. He was called Jock Burns, my grandfather. So he backed every Scottish horse and back greys. And so he didn't have much luck. I think one winner he had that I remember talking about was Rubstick, I think. And then she's a mum. I mean, it's just bonkers. Yeah. A mum to win the Grand National. So you've got a great story there, which would probably be enough to send her off favourite. But then you add in the connections and the Fox Pitts, and William Fox Pitts, obviously a household name, and fifth generation of breeding by his mum, Marietta. And there's going to be generation after generation of Fox Pitts and Plunkets at Aintree on Saturday. They're all coming. They're all mildly bonkers as well, but brilliantly bonkers. And then you've got Alice in the mix, my colleague, who I love so dearly. And this means so much to her. And I saw a quote from her the other day, because we had that amazing day at Sandown when you were at the Beecher, I'm sure, when Snow Leopardess won, when Alice just went off on this most extraordinary victory speech. She described herself as like Gwyneth Paltrow at the Oscars on acid. And I was whispering to myself and trying to whisper to her, Alice, they haven't even called the photograph yet. And she was thanking everybody. It was still a photo at the time. So just imagine she wins the Grand National. I mean, the tears will flow. It would just be the most unbelievable story. I think the best part of the lot would be a mum winning the Grand National. My goodness, I think that would trump most Grand National stories. And there have been some good ones.
There was. Chris, I'm sure that's what we want to see on the front and back pages of the Liverpool Echo on the weekend, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, it's just such a wonderful story, as Ed's just said, you know, for any horse to be a mum and then come back and just race, never mind being with a chance of winning the Grand National, you know, it's just a great story. And I was there at the Beecher Chase there, and it was one of the most horrendous days weather-wise. The wind in one of the races earlier, the winds, you could see the horses and jockeys almost being blown across the track. Zambezi, I think it was, one with Terrell Jacob, and that was the wind, and then the rain had been on all day, and the way Snow Leopardess jumped the national fences there was just a real spectacle, and as good as many horses that have been around there before, and then just got a little bit tired maybe at the end, but held on. But yeah, that would be the
Chris, I'd love to. Could you lay on weather like that again on Saturday? Because my wish every year, I want a monsoon. I'm the one person in the country that wants a monsoon on Grand National Day, so everyone's inside watching on telly.
The only times I can really remember it not on in obviously Redmond Road this year in 2001 it was pretty grim then, but probably the worst day was the other year when Ken Boy won the bowl on the Thursday. That was one of the worst days.
Oh yeah, I was there that day. That was wet.
That was a bad day.
But Saturdays every year. Every year I've done it, it's been sunshine, and a couple of them have been heat waves. I remember one year you couldn't get any charcoal in Tesco's because it was so warm, and that's a nightmare for me.
Yeah. Well, when Bala Briggs won, I don't know what it was. It seemed to be about 25 degrees when that one. So I mean, it probably wasn't, but it seemed that hot that day. But yeah, I mean, as far as I know, it's not going to rain on Saturday, but I don't think it's going to be very warm, so.
Good.
Ed's the only man on Merseyside this weekend that is praying for rain, I'm sure.
Correct. I want the worst weather possible.
Let's look. Oh, fantastic. Right, let's look at them main contenders for Saturday's big race. Starting off, well, I'm going to throw a couple of race trends at you and see how the guys give me their thoughts on that. Interesting take on how the perception of the Grand National has swung in recent years. These are the first 4 horses home in the past 5 years. So 15 out of the 20 are Irish trained. It's been an Irish dominance there. 75% of them have been Irish trained. 13 out of the 20 have raced in the Grand National for the first time. I believe the Aintree versions of the 20 have been aged 8, so 45% swing in that. Look out for them when you're looking to pick your winners on Saturday. So let's look at the main contenders. Got to start off with the horse that broke many, many hearts at Cheltenham, Delta Work. Ed, for you, does this deserve to be at the top of the market, considering it won that cross country there at Cheltenham? It was a tough race, tough conditions. Can it do it on Saturday?
Yeah, listen, he's probably the class horse in the race. You talk about fairy tale stories in the Grand National. This wouldn't be one of them, if I'm totally honest. I might be asking to come off air early if Delta Work wins with Jiggins down again and what have you. But he's a class horse. Yeah. That was a really good performance. It broke my heart in the cross country at Cheltenham, obviously. But 1, he had a hard race. 2, the value's gone in the market. And 3, in those big races before, he's never convinced me with his jumping, Delta Work. So... Yep. My heart doesn't want him to win, I'm afraid. Sorry, Michael O'Leary. And my head says he might just have his work cut out in the jumping department. So I'm going to pass him over.
Yeah, I mean, I feel...
Chris, so you were taking on carrying 11 stone 8?
Yeah, I almost feel the same as almost what Ed said, you know, and being high in weights as well. He doesn't strike me as a horse that would like the Grand National. Even though obviously he ran so well over the cross-country fences, and in recent years that's been quite a good guide to the national. But I don't think he'll win. I don't think he'll even be placed if the truth be known.
You get a good price for that. Let's rattle through some of the main contenders. Any second now. Chris, did this have its chance last year? It won that Bobby Joe chase, as we generally see as a bit of a platform for the Grand National. Me personally, I don't think so. I think Ed Johnson's being the only one that's come from that Bobby Joe chase. But I think Monmouth was the last one to fail in the Grand National and come back and win it. Has any second now got a reasonable chance?
Yeah, I think again, I wouldn't think it'd be my choice of a winner. But certainly you can see that running a really big race and being there again like it was last year on the turn for home. But again, it's got a bit more weight than it had last year, and maybe its chance has gone. Maybe last year what was any second now's chance. You know, it was only just won the Bobby Joe on the bob of the head from Ascaria 10, and I don't know. I think that's going to go very close, but I wouldn't really have it as the winner.
I'm sure Ed's going to have an opinion on this one. Fiddler on the Roof, Ed. A good second at Ascot, as we know. A third behind Chantry House here last year as well, which has got good form as well. Second in that Ladbrokes Trophy, which I'm sure all connections then headed towards the Grand National after that Ladbrokes Trophy run. Skipped the Gold Cup for the Grand National, which is a bit of a tip in itself. Do you like the look of Fiddler on the Roof, Ed?
Yeah, I really do. He's one of the 2 I've backed for the race, actually, Fiddler on the Roof. He's also a really good story, Tony, a real heartbreaking story in many ways, with one of the co-owners having lost his little son, Charlie, when he was young, and Kim, Colin's daughter, who would have been such a key part of this operation, obviously no longer with us as well. And this is Colin's final year with the licence in his own name before he hands over the reins to Joe. So this would be a real tearjerker, and I think he's got a huge chance. He's got the class, which I think is really important in a modern-day Grand National. He's won a Tolworth hurdle, and then over fences. He kept running into really good horses at a time, actually, when the Tizard yard was pretty quiet. And I just thought he wasn't really on my radar until that run at Ascot, when he jumped uncharacteristically badly, actually, particularly as they went down to Swinley Bottom when you watched that back. So it was a bit of a miracle with top weight that day that he was still in there fighting over the last, and he looked like he had the race won, and then Fortescue went and did him on the line. But after that, I came away thinking, goodness me, he's a proper Grand National contender, because to add to that class, he must have plenty of stamina to perform like that at Ascot. So he's definitely on my short list, and I'd love him to win. I've backed him at 25-1. He's a bit shorter now, but I think he's got a big chance.
Great chance indeed. Chris, we'll go to you for the next one. We touched about every trend that is against this horse, Snow Leopard Test. It is the fairy tale story that we all want to see happen. But realistically, is it quick enough? We know it's a good jumper, but will it catch it out? Is this horse quick enough to win a Grand National?
I think it is. Yeah. I mean, I think the way it jumped those fences and it was out in front. I think it's got all the ability to win the race. Whether it does, I'm not quite sure. There might just be one or two that are more, unexposed or a bit lower in the weights, even though it's not, Snow Leopard is not carrying that much weight. But yeah, I know people have said, will it stay? As you said, is it too slow for the modern Grand National? But I think it's got everything you need to be a Grand National winner. Probably all its best form has been on probably softer ground. There's a bit of rain about, and the Grand National's never really run on firm or good ground anymore. It's always on safe, good and soft ground. So I think, the fairy tale could happen. I could quite easily see it.
Oh, I'd love it. I would just be worried about two things, Tony. I think you've hit the nail on the head. And connections are praying for rain for her. They're just worried, particularly early in the race, can she lie up if the ground is only good to soft? So they definitely like some rain for her. And the other thing's the price. I mean, she's going to be a bonkers price. I could genuinely see her going off 6-1 favourite, because she's going to be the public horse. Along with Rachel, she's going to be in every newspaper in the build-up. I mean, she already has been this week, and you can see her price contracting all the time. She very much is the family choice for the race. So on value grounds, you couldn't back her at that kind of price. As much as I'd love her to win, she won't carry a pound of mine. I'm just going to scream the top of my voice for her to win without any financial investment.
Definitely a heart over head bet, I'm sure. Enjoyed Allen has got to be respected because of the JP McManus factory just recently purchased. Longhouse Poet, Ed. You like the look of this one? It's actually beat Monkfish in a bumper previously. It's beaten Run Wild Fred in Novice Chasers. It's a long distance stayer. We know the Martin Braslin factor as well with number 6 Valverde in 2006. That buoyant hurdle form as well just sharpens it up just before the Grand National. You're nodding in agreement, Ed. It ticks a lot of boxes, doesn't it?
Yeah, listen, as you said earlier, the key stat really going into this national, and you said it earlier, is the Irish. The chances are the Irish are going to win this again. I mean, 10 of the first 11 last year is ridiculous. And we saw the domination again at Cheltenham. The encouraging thing, I suppose, was the handicap chase at the Cheltenham Festival, where the Brits did well. But I still, as much as I like Fiddler on the Roof, the biggest negative is just the Irish battalions, really. And Longhouse Poet is my pick of them. I do like Ascaria 10, who was second in the Bobby Joe that you mentioned a few moments ago. I could see him turning around that form with any second now. But Longhouse Poet went right to the top of my list in his performance in the Thyestes chase at Goran Park. I thought that smacked Grand National winner that day. You've got to take note of anything Martin Brassel does in this race after the way he trained number 6 Valverde. Very similar this time around. I actually thought he was a little bit disappointing in the Bowen hurdle, but I'm prepared to put a line through that, because this was clearly the target, and hopefully that was just to tune him up for Saturday. And he ticks an awful lot of boxes, Longhouse Poet. He was my selection when we were down the road launching the Grand National the other day at the Titanic Hotel, and I've seen nothing to change my mind. So I'm sticking with Longhouse Poet. He's probably top of my shortlist with Fiddler on the Roof, number 2.
Go ahead, Chris, have you got an opinion on that one?
Yeah, I sort of agree what Ed's saying about Longhouse Poet, and Enjoy Dallin for me looks even more like the Grand National winner. It's got I think it's got a similar profile to Manila Times. Was second in the Paddy Power chase at Leopardstown over Christmas, and just been bought by JP McManus, who obviously he throws his money around a bit, but he only buys horses that he thinks have got a chance of doing something. And I think Enjoy Dallin for me is probably my number 1 pick. But Longhouse Poet is very interesting because, as you say about Martin Brassel, he won it with number 6 Valverde. That came back, was 6th a year later, and there's only other runner, Double 7, was ridden. I think he was ridden by AP, was he, in 2014? Finished 3rd. So his record of with 3 horses in the national and a winner, a third and a sixth, makes it take notice. The only thing about Longhouse Port is that he's only had 7 chase starts, and a stat that I've looked at is that in the last 30 years, every single horse has had a minimum of 10 chase starts. And that would be the only thing. I don't do everything by stats, but that would be the only thing that would put me off, that maybe he isn't experienced enough for the race. But to me, he'll definitely be in the first 2 or 3.
Interesting thoughts indeed. But before we push our gents for final predictions and a couple of each way fancies, if you'd like to go to the Grand National on Saturday, the comment section below is there for you to add your name and whoever you'd like to take, and good luck with that on the show. Right, before we push the experts, I'll give you mine for what it's worth.
Yeah, I was going to say, Tony, we're going to have yours as well, sure.
Yeah, I'll give mine for what it's worth, Ed. I'll go for Run Wild Fred. I think it's a cracking each way bet. Them 3 trends that I touched on there at the top of the show. It's Irish trained, it's an 8-year-old, and it's running in the Grand National for the first time. And I think a man that knows his way around this race course, Davy Russell, will be riding this one too, I am sure. And ignore its run at Cheltenham. It loves to run in big races. In fact, its record in 16 plus horse races reads first, second, first and second. It loves these big chases, and Davy Russell on board, I'm sure, will give you a run for your money at 25 to 1. Another one to look out for me is Triumph Hurdle winner Farclar. As a 7-year-old last year, it ran an absolute cracker. I think it tails off towards the Melling Road second time around, but came again. If you look at the replay of last year's Grand National, it came again. So yeah, an 8-year-old for me this year, bit more mature. That Gordon Elliott Gigginstown combination once more, although we want to see the fairy tale, I think they're good 2 fancies for me. So what about Chris Wright's selection? Chris, you're the Grand National Liverpool Echo expert. Come on, give us the Grand National winner, and you can go with a couple of each way fancies too, Chris.
Well, Enjoy Allen's going to win it. I just told you then. that One Wild Fred was second in the Irish National, just ahead of Enjoy Allen. And I think Enjoy Allen ran a really good race in that. And it looked like the ideal type for Aintree. And much as I'd love to tip a British horse, I just think that they're going to have at least half the entries are going to be Irish. And the way they've been doing it over the last few years, I just can't see anything other than an Irish winner. So Enjoy Allen's my main fancy. Longhouse Port, I would think, would be right there. Borough Saint, they're saying it didn't quite stay last year. But Willie Mullins and Rich Ritchie were saying, they've tried to work to get it to hopefully stay the distance. So Borough Saint could be as well in there. Probably the longest priced one that I'd say may have a chance of getting placed is Good Boy Bobby from the Nigel Twiston Davis stable. That ran a really good race in the Roland Merrick, and I always like to look at that race. It's not got the perfect profile of Grand National, but I always like to see horses have run well in those type of races. Good Boy Bobby's probably about 40 to 1. Daryl Jacobs decided to ride it out of his the choices that he had for Simon Munir and Isaac Swade. So that's got a chance, and probably outside the Snow Leopard, I'd say that's one of the better British hopes for at least making a place. But to me, it's going to be an Irish winner, and I think it'll be Enjoy Darren, but it'll be at least one from Ireland. That's all I know.
It probably will be, I'm sure. Well, Chris has bigged himself up on Grand National winners there in the past in the podcast, hasn't he? With his Lord Galeen and Monbome. So he put big pressure on himself there. Another man with big pressure on Saturday is Ed Chamberlin. Go on, what are you going for, Ed? And give us a couple of each way shouts as well.
Listen, Tony, the country's in the mood, isn't it? With everything that's going on in the world, we need a feel-good story. If either of your two win, I mean, Farclas and Run Wild Fred. I'll have to look delighted, but I mean, what story's that going to leave us with, and feel-good factors that going to leave us with? Crikey, Moses! I might go for an early throw to the local news or the weather or something. So I'm going to stick with my two. I think the Irish probably will win it after everything we said. I think Longhouse Poet is top of my list for the reasons I said earlier. of the Brits, I think Fiddler on the Roof stands out massively for me. And I just think if he takes to those fences, he's the class horse in the race. I really believe that. And I don't fancy many of the Brits, but I think he can run really well. I totally get the Enjoy Dalen story, which is a really good story with the trainer as well. That's got a fairy tale element to it. Huge prices. Court Maid's been the interesting horse this week with the switch to Henry de Bromhead. That could be a Hail Mary about a horse, to be honest with you. I don't know a whole heap about, but I'm going to stick with my two. I'm going to go Longhouse Poet to win it, Fiddler on the Roof to chase him home. And hopefully Rachel. We haven't talked enough about Rachel yet. She's the girl who's putting Liverpool and Aintree and the sport on in every newspaper this week. And we're not just talking about in this country, globally. And I hope Manila Times will give her another really good spin round. And it'd be wonderful if she won it. But I just think of that £15 higher mark. They might have their work cut out. But whatever happens, whoever's coming to Aintree this week is just going to give her a roar everywhere she goes, because last year it was a ghost town and her historic moment was met by silence. So we need to show her our appreciation this week, which I'm sure the great people of Liverpool will do.
I'm sure she'll be stopped for many a selfie indeed
on
the weekend indeed. Ed, it's been an absolute pleasure having you on the preview podcast with the Liverpool Echo. I'm sure we'll keep up to date with you over the next 3 days. And look out for ITV's coverage, absolutely brilliant coverage they bring to our screens. Ed, forever the professional there. No pressure on you, Ed, on Saturday.
I'm looking
forward
to it. Yeah, thank you.
And no pressure on Chris as well. He's bigged himself up about Grand National winners. So, yeah, ITV will be giving their coverage and we'll be bringing ours. Grand National Opening Day on Thursday, Ladies' Day on Friday, and the Grand National Day itself on Saturday. Look out for that on the Liverpool Echo. We'll bring in lots of content coming your way for the 3 days. Please gamble responsibly, and good luck with whatever you're backing on Grand National.